In a pivotal diplomatic encounter that underscored the complex web of international relationships shaping global conflicts, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made his first White House visit in 6 years on September 25, 2025, meeting with President Donald Trump for over 2 hours of discussions that touched on everything from fighter jet sales to Russian oil purchases and potential Ukraine peace negotiations. The meeting, which Trump later described with a simple great and thumbs-up gesture, marked a significant thaw in U.S.-Turkey relations that had been severely strained during the previous administration and represented a crucial test of Trump's ability to leverage personal relationships with authoritarian leaders to advance American strategic interests. The atmosphere was markedly different from Erdogan's contentious 2019 visit, which occurred amid significant political fallout over Syria policy and Turkey's decision to purchase Russian S-400 missile defense systems. Today's meeting found the two leaders more aligned on regional issues, particularly regarding Syria, while navigating new challenges posed by ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza that have reshaped global alliances and energy markets. Trump dominated the public portion of the meeting, fielding nearly every question from reporters while Erdogan sat mostly silent, a dynamic that reflected both Trump's preference for controlling the narrative and the language barriers that complicated rapid-fire press interactions. Central to their discussions was Turkey's potential acquisition of American-made military equipment, specifically F-35 and F-16 fighter jets, which has been a major point of contention between the two nations since Turkey was expelled from the F-35 program in 2019 following its deployment of Russian S-400 anti-aircraft missiles. Trump expressed optimism about resolving this issue, telling reporters, "I think he'll be successful in buying the things he'd like to buy," and promising that we're going to come to a conclusion on the F-35 question, possibly as soon as that evening. This represented a significant shift from the Biden administration's position, which had maintained strict sanctions on Turkey's defense procurement as punishment for the Russian missile purchase. The military sales discussion highlighted the broader strategic implications of U.S.-Turkey relations, as Turkey remains a crucial NATO ally controlling access to the Black Sea and serving as a bridge between Europe and Asia. Erdogan's ability to secure advanced American military technology would not only strengthen Turkey's defense capabilities, but also potentially reduce its dependence on Russian weapons systems, a key U.S. strategic objective. However, the path to such sales remains complicated by congressional opposition, ongoing sanctions, and concerns about Turkey's increasingly authoritarian domestic policies and its complex relationship with Russia. Perhaps most significantly, Trump positioned Erdogan as a potential mediator in ending the war in Ukraine, suggesting that the Turkish president's relationships with both Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky could be leveraged to bring the warring parties to the negotiating table. "He's very respected by both of them and could be a big influence if he wanted," Trump said, though he noted that Erdogan was currently very neutral on the conflict. This represents a pragmatic acknowledgement of Turkey's unique position as a NATO member that has maintained diplomatic and economic ties with Russia throughout the conflict while simultaneously providing Ukraine with military drones and other support. The Ukraine discussion revealed Trump's continued frustration with the conflict's duration and cost, as he repeated his frequent claim that Russia has spent billions of dollars while gaining virtually no land, adding, "I think it's time to stop, I really do." Trump's assertion that he had settled several wars and thought Ukraine would be among the easier to settle reflects his confidence in personal diplomacy, while also highlighting the complexity of a conflict that has defied easy resolution despite his earlier promises to end it quickly upon taking office. Central to Trump's strategy for Ukrainian peace was his direct appeal for Turkey to stop purchasing Russian oil and gas, which he described as the best thing he could do to help Ukraine. This request puts Erdogan in a difficult position, as Russian energy constitutes a significant portion of Turkey's imports, with Russian gas alone representing 41% of Turkey's total gas imports. Turkey has also become an increasingly important transit route for Russian gas to Europe, with data showing a 26.77% increase in Russian gas flowing through Turkey to EU states in early 2025 compared to the previous year, even as Ukraine cut off direct Russian gas transit in December 2024. The energy issue reflects broader tensions within NATO about continued Russian fossil fuel purchases, which Trump has repeatedly criticized as embarrassing for European allies. His comments to Erdogan came just days after he used his United Nations address to berate Europe for its failure to completely eliminate Russian energy imports 3 years after the invasion began. While the European Union has significantly reduced its Russian gas dependence from about 45% in 2022 to an expected 13% in 2025, several NATO members, including Slovakia and Hungary, continue to receive Russian crude oil through direct pipelines. Trump's offer to lift U.S. sanctions on Turkey almost immediately, if their meeting went well, demonstrated his willingness to use economic incentives to secure Turkish cooperation on strategic priorities. These sanctions, imposed in 2020 over the S-400 purchase, have limited Turkey's access to American military technology and created friction in bilateral relations. The potential for immediate sanctions relief, combined with promises of military sales and trade deals, represented significant carrots that Trump was dangling to secure Turkish alignment with U.S. objectives. The Gaza conflict, while mentioned during the meeting, revealed the careful diplomatic dance both leaders performed to avoid public disagreement despite their fundamentally different positions. Trump claimed he didn't know Erdogan's stance on Gaza, despite the Turkish president having made highly critical statements about Israeli actions just days earlier at the United Nations, where he called on the world to stand upright by the oppressed Palestinians and accused Netanyahu of causing genocide. Trump's assertion that he believed we're close to getting some kind of a deal done in Gaza, based on his UN meetings with Middle Eastern leaders, reflected his continued optimism about his deal-making abilities while avoiding direct confrontation with Erdogan's pro-Palestinian positions. The meeting's timing was particularly significant given the broader geopolitical context, occurring as Trump faces mounting pressure to deliver on his campaign promises to end major international conflicts while managing complex relationships with both allies and adversaries. His administration's approach to Turkey represents a test case for whether personal diplomacy and transactional incentives can overcome structural disagreements and competing strategic interests that have complicated U.S.-Turkey relations for years. Erdogan's motivation for the meeting extended beyond immediate military sales to broader questions about Turkey's strategic alignment and economic relationships. Facing domestic economic pressures and regional security challenges, Erdogan needed to demonstrate that he could secure tangible benefits from the United States while maintaining Turkey's independence and regional influence. His careful positioning as a potential Ukraine mediator offered a path to enhanced international prestige, while avoiding taking sides in a conflict that has divided the international community. The domestic political implications of the meeting were also significant for both leaders. Trump's ability to showcase productive relationships with international leaders, particularly those seen as strong personalities like Erdogan, reinforces his narrative of effective leadership through personal diplomacy. For Erdogan, the White House visit provided valuable imagery of international respect and influence that he could use to bolster his position domestically amid ongoing economic and political challenges. The discussion of potential government shutdown concerns, which Trump blamed entirely on Democrats, demonstrated how domestic political pressures intersect with international diplomacy. Trump's assertion that we have absolutely perfect borders, while criticizing Democratic border policies, showed how he continues to frame foreign policy discussions in terms of his domestic political priorities and partisan messaging. Trump's comments about the recent shooting at an ICE facility in Dallas, where he blamed radical left Democrats for the attack, highlighted the polarized political environment in which these international discussions are taking place. His warning that the right won't take it anymore if political violence continues reflects the broader concerns about domestic stability that form the backdrop for America's international engagements. The meeting's outcome will likely be measured not just in immediate agreements, but in longer-term shifts in Turkish behavior and strategic alignment. If Trump can successfully leverage the personal relationship and economic incentives to reduce Turkish dependence on Russian energy, while securing Turkish mediation efforts in Ukraine, it could represent a significant diplomatic achievement. However, the complex web of Turkish domestic politics, regional security concerns, and economic dependencies may limit Erdogan's ability to make dramatic policy shifts regardless of his personal relationship with Trump. The broader implications extend beyond bilateral U.S.-Turkey relations to questions about alliance management, energy security, and conflict resolution in an era of great power competition. Trump's approach of offering immediate rewards for desired behavior represents a significant departure from the more conditional and gradual approach typically favored by diplomatic establishments, but it also creates expectations for rapid results that may be difficult to achieve given the complexity of the underlying issues. As the international community grapples with multiple ongoing conflicts and the reshaping of global alliances, the Trump-Erdogan meeting represents a critical test of whether personal diplomacy can overcome structural challenges and competing interests that have complicated international relations in the post-Cold War era. Given Trump's offer of immediate sanctions relief and military sales in exchange for Turkish cooperation on Ukraine and Russian energy, will Erdogan be able to balance these American demands against Turkey's complex economic and political relationships with Russia while maintaining his country's strategic autonomy?